This isn't the real Caesar's Palace, is it?
What do you mean?
Did Caesar live here?
No.
I didn't think so.
I went to Vegas last weekend. Pretty crazy.
Vegas, baby, Vegas!
Gentlemen, welcome to Las Vegas.
Why don't you give me half the money you were going to bet? Then we'll go out back, I'll kick you in the nuts, and we'll call it a day.
Some guys just can't handle Vegas.
Hey there, and welcome to this unofficial episode of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm here to take you on a fantastical, wonderful journey to one of my favorite places on the planet. That, of course, would be fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, just as I have done for the past 23 episodes of the podcast. Now, as I mentioned off the top, this is an unofficial episode of the podcast. Why is it unofficial? Well, because in the last episode of the show, I told you that I wasn't going to be coming on for a couple of weeks and that the next episode probably wasn't going to be until sometime in the middle of June because I was going to be taking some time away and going on some vacations, a non-Vegas related vacation. I know I'm a terrible, terrible human being, and I kind of feel like I'm cheating on Las Vegas by going somewhere else. And yet here I am. I've got everything in the cards. And as mentioned, taking some time away. I was off in Winnipeg last week, spending a little bit of time there, visiting some family. It's the first time I've been back since probably, I guess, the middle of October of last year. For those who are not aware, my whole family is in Winnipeg, with the exception, of course, of my Vegas family. And back a little over a year ago, back in January 2018, longtime listeners of the podcast know this, but back in January 2018, my mom passed away. So I was spending a lot of time back in Winnipeg dealing with family stuff over the course of the last year. And then in the middle of October, it all kind of wrapped up and everything was sort of done. And then I really hadn't had an opportunity to get back to Winnipeg since then. So it was kind of nice to be able to jump back and go see the family and spend some time back there. And then throw in working my real job and that kind of getting in the mix. And then my wife and I are off to New York City next week. We're going to be spending about a week in the Big Apple, which is going to be super exciting. This is kind of a bit of a bucket list trip for us. It's a vacation that we've always had on our minds and in our thoughts. We've always kind of wanted to do this. And this year we are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. So we wanted to do something special for that. So we decided that New York City would be the place for us to go and take a little vacation there. So anyways, taking some time there and then coming back from New York, and I'm planning on doing a little studio teardown and rebuild. If you follow me on Twitter, if you go back through some of the stuff I've posted on Twitter, there's actually a video back there of the studio tour that I did. I just kind of took everybody around and showed everyone the studio, which, is nothing fancy. It's a room in my basement. And, it does the job, but kind of want to do a little bit of extra work on it. I want to set up some extra bits of soundproofing and try to improve the acoustics in the room and make it a little more functional and a little more aesthetically pleasing, because coming up in the next little while, I want to start doing some video podcasting, which I've never really been a big fan of in the past. But as I start to kind of expand things and make things a little bit bigger here on the show, that's kind of in my goal of wanting to expand into video and start doing some of that. So I want to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing so that if I shoot video, you're not staring at the closet door behind me. I want to make it a little more exciting. So going to be doing a studio teardown and rebuild there. And then I've got another trip to Las Vegas planned coming up June 16th to 20th, which is going to be a great time. As always, got some plans with Monday's Dark coming up, as well as let's see what else. I've got so I've got Monday's Dark planned. Going to try and get together with some other friends down there, see some other family, some of my Vegas family, of course, and spend some time down there. And yeah, so like lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff happening. So that's why, again, I said in the last episode that you probably weren't going to hear anything from me for a while. However, that's me banging the counter. However, big news, huge news. a massive milestone reached for this podcast. We have officially broken the 10,000 download mark. 10,000 total downloads on this podcast, which just, it tickles me in so many different ways and makes me so happy in so many different ways. Yesterday I posted on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram and said, hey, look at this. We're this close. We're like 50 something downloads, I think, away from actually hitting the 10,000 total download mark. And I was watching the numbers last night and I was watching it creep up and I was watching it grow and it was starting to go there. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic. And I was really kind of hoping that it would crack before I went to bed last night. And unfortunately, it did not. However, when I woke up this morning, we were officially at 10,023 downloads, which was very cool and so happy to see. And as I check the numbers on it right now, at this very moment, we are at 10,045 downloads total, which again is just, I'm so tickled on this. I've told the story a whole bunch of times on the show. And I said, when I first started doing this podcast, it was kind of just a fun little creative outlet. I'd always kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to do some sort of Las Vegas related podcast, but I can never really figure out what I wanted to do, what kind of spin I wanted to put on it. There are a bajillion different Las Vegas podcasts out there, and all of them are awesome, by the way. Like, this is kind of the other neat thing that I've learned about the world of podcasting, especially coming from a world of radio where, in the radio world, everybody is competing with everyone and it's not that you don't have friends, but you can't be outwardly friendly with the other people that you work against in radio, right? There's very seldom are other radio people tweeting other radio people and saying, hey, you know what? Here's a gentle little jab about something, or, hey, I want to talk about what's on your show, or blah, 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 blah. The thing that I've learned in podcasting is that happens all the time. This is a community. Everybody is super friendly with each other. Everybody is super nice to each other. I've had other podcasters on my show. I've been on other podcasters' shows. We've cross-promoted each other's podcasts. It's been such a cool little experience for me. So as I say, when I first started this podcast, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do as far as, how I wanted to handle this. I wanted to come up with a catchy name and I wanted to have some sort of twist or spin or whatever on it. And then I just thought, screw it. I'm just going to call it Jeff Does Vegas. And I'm going to talk about my experiences in Las Vegas. I'm going to do trip reports. I'm going to do reviews on restaurants and hotels and shows and attractions. I'm going to share my vacations. I'm going to share my experiences with everyone. I'm going to give some tips and some tricks and things like that. And that's really all it started off as. And then I kind of realized people don't want to listen to one guy talk to themselves for an hour. Sorry to all the podcasters that are solo and talk to themselves for an hour. And I'm sure most of you are more compelling than I am. But I didn't want to do that. But something I always enjoyed doing was even in my radio time, I always enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed doing interviews. I enjoyed bringing those people into my little radio world. So I've kind of turned around and done that with the podcasting as well. So from this very basic, very simple concept of let's talk about my Las Vegas trips, grew this thing that it has turned into. It's become a thing. It's become a community. People are getting involved. There's lots of people reaching out to me and talking to me on a regular basis via Twitter and via Facebook and Instagram, and people sending me emails asking for advice and sending me questions. And it's really grown from there. The other big thing that's really made this show, I like to think of it as successful. What's really made this show successful in my mind are the guests that I've had on this show. I've had the opportunity to talk to some really cool people and some really interview some really interesting people. And I mean, it's going to take me a while here. I want to name check all of them because they all have they're all special to me in their own kind of way. Chris Kim from the Faces and Aces Las Vegas podcast at facesandaceslv.com. He was the first guest that I ever had on the podcast. That was all the way back in episode number 6. We did a crossover episode where we ran down our list of the top 10 things that, top 10 things you have to do to say you've done Vegas. And that was kind of interesting to be able to put that together and come up with this list together and put everything together. So that was really kind of fun. As well, I want to say a big shout out to my friends Adam West and Maria-Lena Kerr, who appeared in episode 8 of the podcast. We did had a really spirited discussion about kids in Las Vegas, which was really interesting and actually gained me a little bit of backlash from people who were like, "Don't bring kids to Vegas. This is the stupidest thing," and blah, 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 blah. People that obviously hadn't actually listened to the podcast. So if you want to get some interesting discussion on that, go check out episode number 8. Episode number 12, I did a topic of the most overrated and underrated things in Las Vegas. And I had a couple of guest contributors there. Jen and I, who runs, she's a part of offthestrip.com, which is all about off the strip, strangely enough. And Sam Novak, who runs vegasunfiltered.blog, which is a great Las Vegas blog. They were on episode number 12 of the show. Heather Ferris, who is she teaches card dealing, but it's so much more than that. She runs a company called Vegas Aces. She was on an episode number 13 of the show. We talked about table games and the fact that I had not played a table game in my time in Las Vegas. And if I'm being totally honest with you, I still haven't played a table game in my time in Las Vegas, and I feel like a terrible human being for that. Anyways, she was awesome. Had her on the show, episode number 13. Go back, listen to that. Sergio Portazin, who was, he runs a website called vivalasvalue.com. Some very great stuff on there. Sergio's a young dude that's just put this website together in the last couple of years here, talking all about, how to basically live like a high roller, but spend like a low roller in Las Vegas. And you need to go check out his website at vivalasvalue.com. David DeMont-Mullen joined me for episode number 16, Classic Vegas Mistakes. If you look up Classic Vegas Mistakes on Twitter, you'll find David's account on there. David wrote a whole book about classic Vegas mistakes, and we ran through some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they go to Las Vegas. That was episode number 16 of the show. John DiDomenico, who is right now the world's #1 Donald Trump impersonator, but he does so much more than that. There's so much more to him than that. He was kind enough to actually invite me to his house in Las Vegas. We sat down at DiDomenico World Headquarters and chatted at his dining room table. We talked about his life and his career, and talked about a little bit of politics as well, because you can't sit down with the world's #1 Donald Trump impersonator and not talk politics, right? That doesn't make any sense. Lisa Ann Schreier, who's the Timeshare Crusader. Lisa joined me on episode number 19 of the podcast. We talked all about timeshares and how sketchy they can be. She gave some awesome advice about how to avoid getting roped into a timeshare deal and being scammed in a timeshare deal. So we had a chance to chat, and very, very educational episode. I learned a lot on that episode. Episode number 20, I was joined by my very good Vegas friend, Lisa Marie Smith. We talked about so much in that episode, and Lisa is one of my nearest and dearest friends. We've had a chance to kind of be there for each other during some difficult times, both of us having difficult times. And so it was awesome to be able to get her on the podcast and chat with her about her career as a Vegas headliner and, some of her personal struggles that she's gone through. She's had some pretty serious health concerns over the last couple of years that she's had to overcome to come out the other side with this new band that she's got going. It's just fantastic stuff. So again, that's episode number 20 of the podcast. If you hate resort fees like everybody else in the world, you got to listen to episode number 21 of the podcast. Lauren Wolf, who is the founder of killresortfees.com. She joined me on that episode of the show. We talked all about all about resort fees. We talked about how to get out of paying them, how to get them reversed, how to get them refunded, what is being done on a governmental level to try to get rid of resort fees. And this is kind of it's a hot button topic right now because there's all kinds of rumors and speculation going out about some of the third party groups that you do hotel bookings through that are planning on starting to charge commissions on the resort fees, even though they don't actually collect the resort fees on their end. As well, we talked about all of that. So again, that was really fascinating. Probably one of my favorite episodes to do. And it's only because I have some real big interest in it. I talked to Jeff Schumacher, who is senior content director for the Mob Museum. That was episode number 22 of the podcast. If you've never been to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, you absolutely positively need to go to the Mob Museum. It's just downtown, just off Fremont Street. It's going to take you 2-3 hours to go through at least, and you're going to learn a lot. But Jeff and I went through some of the mob history of Las Vegas, and mob history in general. We talked about mob movies and accuracy. We dispelled some of the myths of the mob's involvement in Las Vegas. It was a great conversation. So that's a great one. If you want to go and listen to that one again, it's episode number 22. And then of course, the most recent episode released, featured my good friend, Kristen De Silva, who is a prime rib aficionado, much like, sports fans make it their goal to, visit every rink in the NHL or every Major League Baseball stadium or, every NFL stadium. Kristen has made it her goal to eat every prime rib in Las Vegas. And so we talked all about prime rib. We talked about the best prime rib, the most reasonable prime rib, where to find prime rib. We talked about, her growing up in Las Vegas. Some great stories and some great stuff in there. So be sure to check that one out again. That's the most recent episode of the podcast. That is episode number 23. So I don't think I've missed anyone. Those were all my guests that have appeared on the podcast that have helped to make it what it is. And of course, without you, the folks listening to the podcast, there would be no podcast. So I want to say a big thanks to all of you. I want to say a big thanks to everyone who downloads the show, shares it with their friends, shares it on their social media, tweets about it. A big thanks to everyone that gets in touch with me with the feedback and lets me know what you're thinking of the podcast. And if you've got questions, of course, if you're trying to plan your own Las Vegas vacation, you've got, you need ideas for things to do, places to eat. You want to know the best spots to stay. I can help you out with that. All you have to do is reach out to me. You can do it via social media at Jeff Does Vegas. You can email me direct, jeff@walkernewmedia.com. Those are the best ways to get in touch with me. So again, thank you so much to everybody who has taken the time to jump on and listen to the show and get in touch with me. You honestly really have no idea how much it means to me. As I say, when I started this thing, I really had no idea what was going to happen with it. I didn't know if I was going to stick with it. I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I'll try a few episodes and see what happens. Here we are 23 episodes later. And lo and behold, this is where we're at, 10,000 downloads, 23 episodes, people all over the world listening and interacting with me. This is what it's all about. So I guess the big question is, what's next? Well, lots of guests coming up. I've still got lots of my Las Vegas friends that I want to share conversations with. I've got a couple of folks that I still need to rope in and kind of, not so much convinced to come on the show, but some of them are just super, super busy and hard to nail down for any amount of time to actually sit. And I always like to have conversations with these people. I don't like to just do an interview. Interviews to me are boring. I want to have conversations with these people. I want to learn about them. I want to chat to them. I want to find out about their backgrounds and their interests. I want to know more about it. And I want you guys to be like the fly on the wall listening to these conversations. So that's on the hook, or on the, coming down the pipe here, for what to look forward to for the show. Also, let's see what else. Mentioned the studio rebuild. So that's kind of exciting. That's really just exciting for me. Some video podcasting stuff that I want to try and plan and set up here in the next while. As well, I'm looking at trying to put together potentially some kind of meetup. I don't know exactly how to plan it or what I want to do, but I want to try to put together some kind of formal get together in Las Vegas for you, the listeners. Of course, my fear in planning this, if I do put something together, is nobody comes. That's my biggest fear, is that I'm going to put this thing together and it's going to be me sitting at a table by myself going, yeah, this is exciting. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm thinking maybe closer to the end of the year, maybe around sort of like the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. The first episode was put out back in December of 2018. So maybe, I've got a plan, a Vegas trip planned for December of 2019. So maybe I'll look at trying to put something together for kind of like the 1 year anniversary of the podcast, a little get together. Like I say, my biggest fear is that I plan this and nobody shows up. So hopefully that doesn't happen. So kind of planning on that. Again, working on a whole bunch of guests, people that I'm trying to sort of nail down and get together. Lots of interesting topics, that I want to try to get into here. I do have a Vegas trip planned, as mentioned, coming up here the 16th to the 20th of June, working on some interviews that I'm going to be able to do while I'm in town there. So that's kind of exciting. In the meantime, I guess, the only other thing I just want to plug quickly is the Patreon program. If you go to, patreon.com/JeffDoesVegas, you'll see, the patron program that you can sign up for. All the tiers are there. All the information is there for as little as $1 a month. You get access to ad-free VIP editions of the podcast, early releases on some of the podcasts as well. So that's always a fun little thing to be able to put together. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. I think I've hit everything that I want to talk about here. Just thinking, racking the brain. Yep, that's it. So I think we'll just close it down. And again, say thank you to everybody. 10,000 downloads is a huge, huge thing. And I'm super happy that we've been able to reach this milestone with the podcast. And again, it's all because of you guys listening, and to my guests, it's because of all of you guys. And thank you. I can't say it enough. I can't say thank you enough. So, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. My name is Jeff, and this has been an unofficial, unnumbered episode of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast, a Walker New Media production.